Path of Exile 2 just dropped a fairly large patch. In fact, it's one of the largest patches the game has actually had since its release, and it includes a ton of changes as well as additions to the game too. So I'm going to kind of go through and break this down. There's also 9 new unique items, and some of them are actually quite nuts. There's 22 new runes, 7 new talismans, 15 new in-game soul cores, and a lot of these are a lot stronger than I was actually expecting, and we can see all of those. I've got the breakdown for all of them, so let's get going. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is go over the runes, talisman, and soul cores. Now, I don't want to spend too long on this part because there's a lot of these, so I just want to show you some highlights. Like, look at this one, for instance, okay? Right here, 25% chance for spell skills to fire 2 additional projectiles. I mean, that's pretty strong. That's almost like a support gem there. And considering that you could stack multiple of these, your chance can get up there pretty high. So, I mean, that looks pretty good, right? Then you have one like this, kind of in the same vein. Bow attacks fire an additional arrow. You just straight up get an extra arrow on bow attacks. And again, you could have like 3 sockets or something. So imagine, you know, you using, I don't know, a Widow Howl or whatever, just a level there. You put 3 of these in there, you're firing 3 additional arrows. Ones like this here, physical damage to attacks. I mean, you have 2 of these in there on gloves. That means on the top end, you're getting, 10 to 24 bonus physical. Or just one more quick example here, increased magnitude of non-damaging elements. So, I mean, you could get 40% more magnitude on gloves and something like a Stormweaver where you're doubling your shock. That could be quite good. And obviously, we have like the ones they showed before here, including the bonus movement speed on boots, which will be very important. And well, one last example here, helmets, increased experience gain. So now if you're at the higher level and you are pushing towards level 100 or something like that, you can get 4% increased experience by adding 2 of these into your helmet that's double socketed. So, I mean, that would be pretty much mandatory if you're pushing for level 100. Okay, and that brings us to the soul cores, and some of these are very interesting. For instance, you can have ones that the armor actually applies to the elemental damage taken. So we have kind of an additional little bit of layer of defense that we can take for the elemental sides of things, which is nice because armor needed a little bit of love. Well, it's not terrible, actually, not quite as bad as people say, but it's something that will help out making armor even better. Again, this is for more of the elemental side of things, which I don't think elemental damage is typically like the issue, to be honest with you. Like physical damage is a little bit more what's more scary, but still, this is a pretty nice addition here to defenses. You have faster start of energy shield on that one here, chance to gain additional charge when you're gaining charges of each of those types. We have, minion damage increase, etc. But then you have like maximum rage here, curse and poison duration, recoup of speed here, or damage taken as a life recoup. I mean, there's some nice varieties. The projectile speed is in there. So you have a pretty good variety of additions, just adds chaos damage to a weapon, for instance, if you're doing chaos damage. So, you have a decent variety of these. I think the ones where the armor applies are kind of the more interesting ones. I won't say the sword cores are as overwhelming. They just seem kind of interesting. Now, brings us to the talisman. Now, on the talisman, there's a couple that strike out to me, which is your minions have reduced reservation. The helmet, 2 of these, obviously 10% reduced reservation. This could be quite good paired with like maybe a rabbit talisman from the previous update where scepters have increased spirit, etc. So you could really get a lot more minions. You have reduced cost there. You have +1 charm, increased attack speed on gloves. That actually be pretty good. And then this one gives you a chance that your skills don't absorb being power from like a war cry if you're empowering things. And there's already a support gem that does that, I believe. So I think you get like on the higher end of it, you can get up to like 65% chance to not consume, and the curse enemies take increased damage, and they already got the poison one. So like these are kind of interesting as well. Not quite as crazy as the runes I was showing you with like the archery or the wilderness, for instance. Those are really kind of the standout ones for me. But overall, these are some nice additions to sockets. This portion of this we've talked about before, not going to re-break it down. Basically, the more rarer items are much more common. And now the tiers are reversed, meaning tier 2 is actually better than tier 4, for instance. Tier 7 is quite bad. You can see it's only 6.4 life regen. So lower number is now better. This is tier 2 on the movement speed at 30% because tier 1 is 35%. This is how it was in Path of Exile 1 and caused some confusion in Path of Exile 2, and they now have reverted this. This next one's actually super nice here. When you type in a keyword like I typed in life, it is much easier to see, and now you can just go ahead and hit the enter button, and it will warp you through all of the different nodes of which you have searched for, sort of like Control F, big addition. Okay, this is the volatile plants change we've talked about previously. Now, effectively, there's 2 things you need to know. One of which the volatile plants do less damage and are less common. That's basically what you need to know. That's for you. But also the other thing you should know is if you ever felt like you're getting shit on by these, half of it's skill issue, to be fair, but the other half of it is not skill issue. Because if you look at this, Volatile plants were dealing a little over double their intended damage. So they would spawn 3 of these things, but now they only spawn 2. And when they hit you, they're doing twice as much. So if you got stacked by 3 of these, it was like getting hit by 6 of them, basically, at the same time. Which is why, you know, you would lose 2,500 health or something and just be like, what the fuck? Like, I don't understand. Like, this really shouldn't be doing that much damage. So the reality of this is volatile plants have been massively nerfed. A couple other changes to some outliers here, like Draven in the campaign's a little bit less damage now, and also that big AoE that would happen from the expedition mobs, like the red and blue one that would be a big circle, that does slightly less damage as well. This here is more variability in maps. We've talked about this previously as well. Basically, the maps are going to have more variety now, as well as, I don't think they mentioned this before, the packs that are within the maps are going to have more variety as well. So it should shake up a little bit of the boring gameplay. This part was interesting, however. The distance that you can see in the Atlas of Fog is now based on the distance to the nearest revealed map. So basically, it's much more consistent is what they're saying on the actual Atlas. And I can show you an example of this. Okay, so this fog now actually reveals, the reason I've come this way to find the stone citadel is this was sitting right here, but I had like this map right here completed, and I couldn't see it from this distance just because it was a little bit inconsistent. But as soon as that change happened, I could see it. Now, also, when you find one stone citadel now, it means there are multiple stone citadels of the same type spawning around it too. So because there's a stone, there will be an iron. There's also going to be a copper. However, the reason you're not seeing it on this one is because this one has already been generated from beforehand. I just couldn't see it because of the inconsistency of the map. But now I can actually see it, so therefore it has not spawned the other citadels because it was already generated. But now when you find new ones that were not generated as you go out on the map, the other citadels will appear around them. This is much more consistent for players. Basically, no more, oh, I have iron, I have, you know, copper, I can't find a stone citadel. Like, that's just not going to happen anymore. You find one, you roughly find them all. They're all in the same area. Now, there were some changes to, like, cursed ground waystone effects, as well as, like, the additional projectiles modifier not going to tier 6 as much, and the penetration one only being 10 to 15% now. There's 2 things you need to know about the curse. One of which is you're no longer permanently cursed when you go to a map. However, the curses themselves are actually stronger. So you don't, if you're playing hardcore, you can get caught off guard by this. I did. So before, the elemental curse was 15%, you're just 15% low resistance all the time. Now the elemental curse is actually 30%, but it shows up in a big circle, and you have to stand in it. So it's like, you know, when you cast your own curse, it'll show up and then it'll boom, proc. Now, this is actually really scary because you actually want to be very careful in hardcore not to run these cursed maps, because the temporal change is actually 40%. So if you get hit by temporal change, you're 40% slowed. I mean, that's a fuckload. Or if you get hit by the elemental one here, you're 30% lower. So I was I had 91% across the board. I got hit by this thing. Suddenly I'm at 61% curses. I'm like, well, I'm starting to take like a lot of damage. So this one, be careful. This can definitely catch you off guard if you were expecting this. If you've prepared your character to be 15% over resistances all the time, just so you can run cursed maps for cursed elemental, this actually changes the amount of curse. They didn't mention this anywhere in here. They say it's the same as the plastic player casted to be on the ground, but they don't mention it actually basically doubled in power as well. Whether or not this was intended, I don't know, but it is factually much stronger. After the change, all of the rogue exiles I've seen them in my maps have had unique items as well. They've lowered the chaos pustuos to have lower frequency, etc. This is again like the purple shit that flies around. It's just much easier here. The Wildwood unique map is much more rewarding because, in my opinion, this one was not very rewarding at all. They also have visual indicators, so you can actually see where these omen altars are, because before you would just run around in the dark on these unique maps and not know where the hell you're going, and maybe get one of these altars and be like, that was disappointing. So they have buffed this map. Much more catalyst dropped from the Twisted Domain, which in my opinion is highly necessary, because getting catalyst is like, I don't even use catalyst in this league, and I've played a lot. So, you know, I actually have no rings that are maxed out on catalyst, and I have a 94, and I've had 93 and like multiple mid-level 80s or so. Like I've played a pretty decent amount. And so, you know, not using catalyst at this point compared to last league is absolutely wild. Breach rings are always rare now when they drop also. So they're kind of doing some buffs to some of the stuff that just doesn't appear from Breach. Not going to go over the rest of these because we've kind of pseudo touched on these in some of the other videos, but basically Expedition has been significantly buffed from the logbook side of things. I haven't got a chance to test all of them yet myself, but from what I'm hearing, we did a live stream, and I'll be live today testing out more of these features. The people in the chat were saying the logbooks are extremely better now. And now we get to really, like, in my opinion, the point of this video and the point of the additions to it, which is 9 new uniques. So first we're going to talk about the overhauls to the uniques that are already in the game, then we're going to go over the new uniques. So Headhunter, for instance, here's a great example of this. They've improved the overall power of existing ones. Headhunter used to steal the rare powers for 20 seconds. Now it steals enemy modifiers for 60 seconds. Okay, this is a 3x increase in power in terms of the duration of this. So you get a full minute of these modifiers. This paired with on the Atlas where you get the shrines and the shrines last longer, your character can stack some buffs, dude. Let me tell you, you can have a lot of buffs, okay? Speaking of shrine buffs, that unique shrine from the melee that gives you a shrine here has been buffed both in damage, 50% on the lower and higher end here on the bonus 15% increase, but also the shrine buff now lasts twice as long. Was 10 seconds, lasts 20 seconds, which is cool. However, the real W out of this patch isn't really even Giga Chase items, in my opinion. It's more of like some items that before were like kind of really dog shit. So like, you know those like guided palms? Let me show you here. I got one of them. Like, here's a couple quick examples of the older ones here. Just allies in your presence do more damage, 50% base lightning, 7 all attributes and light radius. Like, you know, come on, dude. Like, who's gonna use these things? Now they're actually kind of nutty. Like, let me show you here, okay? So now that what they do is, first of all, more damage. They give you like, you know, what is it here? 3.5 times the added damage to allies. But then in addition, okay, it gives you one type of stat. So fire gives you strength here, code gives you intelligence, and lightning gives you dexterity, for instance, instead of just the all attributes. But here's the part that's really interesting. Now grants you 25% of damage as extra fire. So the fire variant gives you damage as extra fire. Obviously the code lightning of lightning. So you're getting bonus damage from wearing the scepter. Then here's the fun part, okay? A permanent guided meteoritic shrine buff, the shrine that's constantly, you know, auto-targeting down and casting down meteorites to kill shit around you. You get that shrine buff literally permanently, which is just actually really awesome because I think that part's super fun. I don't know necessarily how much this is going to be like actually like in-game bis or anything like that. I mean, the extra damage, extra fire damage is actually quite good. Like, to give you an idea, or lightning or what have you, like that is actually quite good, and particularly because people are using Sacred Flame for kind of a similar type of style. So I mean, that is good, but you also get this permanent shrine buff, which is just really fun. Now, you also have the code variant, which gives you the guided freezing shrine buff, so you can have the one that freezes in a row there. Maybe you want to use the codes, you can try to get freeze or something like that. And then you have a permanent tempest shrine buff, which is the lightning portion that goes around it as well. Now, I don't know if just wearing this and the damage is extra lightning is enough to guarantee a shock. I mean, it might be, but this might be a way you can slot in on some builds just to get a shock in your build if you don't have any other way of getting a shock or something like that. So, I mean, these just strike to me as like a lot of fun additions to some of the uniques, and particularly maybe in like SSF or something like that, where you're not necessarily running like BIS quite everything. If you look here, these are like level 78 variants to give you an idea. So you could use them decently earlier on in the map. So that, I saw that when like everyone was kind of surprised when we were reading through things. I was like, actually, that's like really cool. Okay, and then you have the Moirong, I think is how you technically pronounce that here, which has been massively buffed from 150, 200% to 250, 350. So the floor is now what 50% above what the floor is 50% above what the ceiling was, and now gives you 2 to 4 level of lightning instead of just +1. I mean, so, you know, you have a 4x multiplier on the plus there. All right, so I mean, that is a massive buff there. Okay, and then look at this. The lightning spell on melee hit meta generated, renamed to Thunder God's Wrath, and now causes triggered spells to cost no mana and grants them a level-dependent amount of increased damage up to 200% at skill level 20. So this item just became a lot more interesting here. Then we have the Spire of Ire unique item, okay? Much more chaos damage, more than double what the chaos damage actually was. They double what the physical damage leeches life now is. I like this one. Calm's Heart is now 1,500 flat life instead of 1,000. So obviously another 500 life is going to be great because that's pre all of your extra, you know, percentages or more life buffs if you're a Titan, stuff like that. So, you know, this actually could mean you get a good buff to a life here for people if they choose to use this chest plate, which is also nice because I feel like life doesn't really have a lot of love in this game. So I love to see a little bit of addition to life. Speaking of life, Prism Guardian that gives you Spirit for life has been doubled in terms of power. Now it's 1 Spirit for 25 life instead of per 50. So we're seeing some more buffs there as well. Defiance of Destiny here gives you 10 to 20% of missing life recovered before being hit instead of 10%. So that's twice as good as well. So you can go down these lists here. Yoke is suffering here, and then Bringer of Rain got buffs as well. But like, I mean, as you go through this list here, you realize like there's actually a, that's pretty much all of them. But there's a pretty decent, amount of changes here in a really interesting direction. I really like these guiding palm ones. Like this is going to be super fun. Like I'm trying to get a drop of these now. Okay, and that leads us to the new unique items. Now, we've seen some of them prior, which we'll just do a very short recap because it was just the previous video. You got the Lionized Glare, which basically attacks again if there's no enemies in your presence. You have the Last Laminate here, which is a new Desolate Crossbow unique, and that actually has its own composed Requiem ability, which you can see more in my previous video if you're interested. We have the Whispering Ice, which again gives us its own abilities here. You can either pause this or look in the previous video where we break that down as well. And then you have the new Quiver, and these are sort of the chase uniques that they were showcased previously. So those are obviously in here. So let's look at the other ones. Now, there is this Siphoning Wand. The database has these here, and if you look at this, it just doesn't really look that interesting. +3 the spell level with some cast speed, and minus yourself to elemental resistance per power charge, which is weird, and you're kind of like, this actually doesn't look very good. This doesn't show that it actually has an additional ability because the database doesn't have it yet. Luckily, somebody in my Discord, you can join the Discord, the link down below if you're interested, was nice enough to post this for us. You can actually see the Pinnacle of Power here. What does this do? Buff duration, 5 seconds per power charge consumed. 8% more elemental damage per power charge consumed as well. And you can get up to 2% more with quality here. Buff causes all elemental damage to contribute to Ignite Chance, Magnitude, Shock, and Freeze buildup as well. So, what does this actually mean? Well, you can stack more and more and more power charges. I think it was Alkaiser was doing an interesting build where he had like 7 or 8 or something power charges with Thunderfall and the Monk, for instance, okay? And because of that, we know that you can get a lot of power charges. Well, if that's the case, then you could get, let's say you could get 8 power charges, you could get 64% more elemental damage. And may I remind you, that's more, not increased elemental damage. It's elemental damage, not elemental damage used on spells or something like that. And elemental damage in the game is absolutely wild. So what you could actually do, because this is a buff, you could cast this and you could buff your elemental damage and swap maybe to something like Lightning Spear or what have you. So this will actually be pretty nutty. We'll have to see exactly how the interactions work. It is a chase unique item, but this looks pretty crazy. The scary part being you have minus elemental res per power charge. So obviously you want this on weapon swap or something where you're not constantly getting that negative effect. There's a new earlier game item here that gives you life, all attributes, life regen, and then pin enemies which are primed for pinning. So this is almost like the Titan Ascendancy that just stuns people when they're primed for stunning. Here you got the same idea for pinning. Now, here's a cool one, which might pair with the Siphon one they were talking about earlier. Check this out. Okay, so this is the Mind of the Council. You get increased evasion, energy shield, mana, lightning res, but where it really counts is attacks cost additional percentage of your mana, and attacks have an added maximum lightning damage equal to 6 to 9% of your maximum mana. So this is basically the equivalent of like Archmage, Intel mana stacker, but for attack damage as opposed to spells. So that looks pretty interesting. They also added a poison quiver here where you have a chance to poison on hit, physical damage to attacks, poison duration, poison on hit, and blind targets when you poison them. And then it puts us to the ones that we have already seen. So between the changes to some of the uniques we already have in the in-game and the 9 new unique additions, I would say a few of them are, maybe like leveling stuff or something that maybe I'd use it, for very niche type of things, but when using the other. There are some what look like potentially, meta type of items within these, like the Council Mask and the Wand, for instance. Between these additions and like the changes to some of the scepters and again, I butcher that one every time. With all of these additions, there's actually some stuff that I would really like to try, which makes me wish I kind of wasn't in SSF because I would like to try some of these. So that's going to be today on the live stream. I have a podcast. We're doing the Tavern Talk podcast with Ghazi and Pox to talk about, some of the changes in all of the games. We have the Path of Exile one review you can see in the previous video as well if you want to watch the reveal of that. But also we're going to talk about some of the Path of Exile 2 things. And I'm going to be trying to get my hands on some of these to just see kind of what they look like, because there's whole skills here that you can't even access without getting some of these new unique items. And really, honestly, what was missing in the game is unique items to feel excited when they actually drop. Like there wasn't too many of those unless you get like a Headhunter, Astromantis or something. And so now we actually got to see how much that drop rate has actually been affected in the game, because they're, in their own words before, it's supposed to be massively basically buffed. So that will be about it. Got a lot of subscribers in the last video, like 150 or something. I appreciate that for those that chose to subscribe on the last video. And if you choose to subscribe on this one, thank you as well. And I'll see you on the live stream now. All in all, pretty cool patch.